The institution I work for is unlike any other. Most residents and even the staff possess something unusual, something supernatural. Even I'm not exempt. After a chilling incident involving one of the residents, my curiosity got the better of me. I decided to dig into her past. This wasn't against protocol here. This place operates by its own set of rules. Though I'm technically security staff and not medical, I was drawn to her file like a moth to a flame. At first glance, there was nothing about her that screamed special. She seemed ordinary. Almost. Her hair was a peculiar, silvery color, a color that wasn't dyed but had somehow changed naturally over time. No one had a name for what she was, and her origins remained a mystery. The name she went by in this place wasn't even her real one. Everyone, including herself, called her Virgo. Virgo wasn't the only one with an alias here. A handful of residents bore names from the zodiac. It seemed fitting, in a strange, poetic way. In Virgo's file, I found a thumb drive containing audio recordings of her sessions with Dr. Kashin, one of the leading specialists at the facility. Most of the recordings were uneventful, Virgo responding in monosyllables or not at all. But the third session, that was something else entirely. Here's the transcription of that session, as best as I could recount it. Dr. Kashin, Miss, are you willing to speak today? Virgo, call me Virgo, like everyone else does here. Dr. Kashin, all right. Virgo, are you ready to talk? There's a long, heavy sigh. The sound of someone shifting in their seat follows, accompanied by the metallic clink of chains. Handcuffs, perhaps. Virgo, if I tell you what happened, can I leave? Dr. Kashin, you know that isn't an option. You've killed quite a few people, and you're considered a danger to society. If you were released, more lives would likely be at risk before you were inevitably caught and imprisoned. Silence. Dr. Kashin, listen, the group is willing to house and feed you, to keep you safe and, more importantly, keep others safe from you. With time and cooperation, you could earn more freedom, even roam the grounds without the current precautions. Virgo, so it doesn't matter if I talk or not. My life isn't mine anymore, is it? Dr. Kashin clears his throat. Dr. Kashin, that's really up to you. Virgo, the more you fight us, the less freedom you'll have. But if you prove you can control yourself, you might find some semblance of normalcy here. A long pause follows. When Virgo speaks again, her voice is distant, almost resigned. Virgo, all right, where should I start? Dr. Kashin, where do you feel it all began? Were you a child? Did something happen to you? Or was it something your family struggled with? Virgo, I wouldn't know. I was an orphan. I never had a family to ask about. Dr. Kashin, what about your childhood? Did you experience anything unusual? Virgo, I was normal, maybe a little shy. Nothing happened until Maria. Dr. Kashin, Maria, she was your first victim. The recording ended there. My skin prickled with unease. Who was Maria? And what had Virgo done to her? The answers lay somewhere in the next session. Virgo shifted uneasily in her seat, her chains clinking softly. Her voice, tinged with sorrow, began to break the silence. Maria was my girlfriend, she said. I thought she loved me. I know I loved her. Dr. Kashin paused for a moment before responding. What happened with Maria? Virgo sighed again, this time with a ragged edge. We had been dating for 6 months. I fell hard, fast. She was everything. Beautiful, funny, and mysterious. She kept me guessing. But she was also secretive in a way I didn't understand. I didn't know what she had planned for me that night, the night that changed everything. The night we both died. Dr. Kashin's voice softened, yet there was an undercurrent of urgency. But you're still alive. Virgo's reply was chilling. She brought me back. The doctor leaned forward, his pen poised. Please, explain what transpired. Virgo nodded faintly, the metallic clink of her restraints echoing softly It's all still so clear. It was late. Just after 2 a.m. I'd gotten home from work around 1:30. It had been a long day. But Maria had texted me earlier, inviting me over to her place. She said we could spend the night and the next day together. I was packing a bag when she showed up at my door, unannounced. She had this radiant smile and hot chocolate waiting for me in the car. It was such a sweet gesture, and I didn't question it. We drove to her place, and everything felt normal until it didn't. When we got there, she was buzzing with excitement, saying she had something to show me. She led me to the basement. At first, I didn't think much of it, but as I started down the stairs, I felt off. Dizzy, like the air itself was pressing down on me. My balance faltered, but Maria was there to steady me, her touch warm and reassuring. Virgo's voice dropped, as though the memories themselves weighed her down. When we reached the basement, it was like stepping into another world. The air felt charged, and the shadows seemed to shift unnaturally. She led me to a chair in the center of the room and gently guided me to sit down. I didn't even notice how strange the chair was until she started strapping me in. The next thing I remember is waking up. My head throbbed, and my limbs felt leaden. I tried to move, but the straps held me tight. Maria was there, whispering softly. She said everything would be okay, that she loved me. But I couldn't understand what was happening. I begged her to let me go, but she just shook her head and said she needed to try something, that I was perfect for it. Virgo's voice faltered, trembling with the weight of her recollection. She picked up this vial filled with a strange, shimmering liquid and told me to drink it. I refused at first, but she kept reassuring me, promising to let me go afterward. Eventually, I gave in. Dr. Kashin interjected gently, "What was in the vial?" Virgo shook her head. "I still don't know. Whatever it was, the moment it touched my throat, I felt this warmth radiate through me. It was intoxicating, euphoric. It felt like my body was connected to the earth itself, as if I had roots burrowing deep into the ground beneath me. But then it wasn't enough. She brought another vial, and this one it was cold, like swallowing ice. I drank it, and everything changed. The warmth vanished, replaced by a piercing chill. Those roots I felt connecting me to the earth. They began to wither, to decay, and with them so did I." Virgo's voice trailed off, her gaze distant as though reliving the nightmare. Virgo's voice dropped to a trembling whisper, her words steeped in anguish. I coughed. I leaned to the side and spat out whatever was forcing its way up my throat. It splattered on the floor, a thick, viscous mix of green and dark red. For a moment, I thought it might have been beautiful if the colors were brighter, less grotesque, and then I died. Dr. Kashin's voice cut through the tension, steady but probing. "How do you know that you died?" Virgo hesitated, her voice thick with emotion. "Because when I came back, Maria was leaning over me. Her head was on my chest. She was crying. When she looked up, her face was soaked with tears, and she kept saying the same thing over and over. 'You died. You weren't breathing. You were gone for hours.' She said I had started to grow cold, that my body was lifeless." Her tone became more distant, as though reliving the moment. But the strangest part was how warm she felt against me. Everywhere her skin touched mine, it was like fire. She was a pillar of heat, and I needed it. I needed her. It was like standing near a bonfire on a freezing night, inching closer and closer, desperate to feel the flames even when the sparks threatened to catch your clothes. I didn't even feel cold, though, not exactly. I just craved her warmth. Dr. Kashin leaned in, his pen still. "What happened next?" Virgo's voice faltered. "She kissed me." The room seemed to hold its breath as Virgo continued. Her lips burned against mine, and her heat spread through me like a pulse starting from my mouth and blooming across my face. I held her closer, kissed her back. I couldn't help myself. I needed her in a way I had never needed anyone before, but then something changed. She paused, her voice breaking as though the weight of her confession was too much to bear. My teeth, they had become sharp, I didn't even realize it until I felt them graze her lip. She pulled back, and blood welled up where her skin had broken. It shimmered under the light, and I couldn't stop staring. Her voice grew quieter, yet each word carried an almost unbearable intensity. She moved, and I heard her bones shift. It wasn't a natural sound, it was like the sizzling of meat on a grill. My heart pounded, and those invisible roots I'd felt before, they quivered with excitement. And then I acted. Before I even knew what I was doing, I lunged at her. Virgo's chains clinked softly as she shifted uncomfortably, her voice trembling with barely contained horror. I pinned her to the floor. I felt her bones crunch under the force. My nails had hardened, sharp and unyielding, and my teeth, they tore through her flesh like it was nothing. Skin, muscle, tissue, it didn't matter. I ripped it all away until I reached her bones. Her ribs, they were beautiful. The first one was hard to dislodge, but once I had it in my hands, it was worth the effort. I bit into it, the marrow spilling onto my tongue. It was intoxicating. I couldn't stop. I didn't even realize she was dead. Her voice cracked, and she began to sob, the sound raw and unrestrained. I don't know when she died. Maybe it was before I started eating. Maybe it was after. I don't know if she saw me rip her open, saw me devour her. But I couldn't stop. Not until most of her skeleton was inside me. Dr. Kashin hesitated, his voice softer now. What did you do after that? Virgo let out a bitter laugh, the sound hollow. What else could I do? I ran. I grabbed her car keys and drove back to my place. I knew I couldn't stay there, but where could I go? I had just killed my girlfriend, Virgo said, her voice trembling with suppressed emotion. Dr. Kashin pressed gently. Why did you go back home first? I needed to get clean, Virgo admitted. I was covered in her blood, bits of her everywhere. I was terrified someone on their morning commute would see me and know. Did anyone notice you? The room fell silent for a moment. Then Kashin, glancing at his notes, added, From what I've read in your file, there's no record of any witnesses that day. So, why did you leave everything behind when you fled town? Virgo sighed, her voice tinged with despair. It was all material. None of it mattered. I cleaned myself up, grabbed some clothes, took as much money as I could from my bank account, and left. I didn't need anything else. The most important thing to me was already gone, dead, and it was all my fault. Did you ever go back to Maria's house? Kashin asked, his tone probing. Do you know what was found there? No, Virgo whispered. I never went back. I don't know what they found. Did you know that Maria was a witch? The question hit Virgo like a slap. What? What the hell are you talking about? It was kept out of the public reports, Kashin explained, his voice calm. But yes, our investigation uncovered that Maria was a witch. Those liquids she gave you, potions, she was experimenting, combining science with magic. What she attempted that night was reckless. Virgo's voice rose, sharp with anger. Bite your tongue. Maria was incredible. She'd never do anything to hurt me, not on purpose. Kashin's expression remained neutral. Did it ever occur to you that she might be responsible for what you've become? Virgo froze, her voice barely a whisper. No, did she? Kashin sighed before continuing. Not entirely. As far as we can tell, she's the reason you died. But what she was trying to achieve, it caused you to become this. Her potions were amateurish. And while there were side effects, they're not the reason you now crave bones. Side effects? Virgo asked, her tone wary. What color was your hair before you drank her potions? Dark brown, Virgo answered cautiously, and now, it's white. Is that all you care about? My goddamn hair. Virgo's voice cracked. I killed my girlfriend. You also killed 17 other people before we caught you, Kashin said firmly. They didn't matter. Why not? They had lives, families, friends. Why is it only Maria that mattered to you? Was it because of your attachment to her? No. Yes, I don't know. Virgo's voice wavered, her composure unraveling. Kashin leaned in. Why didn't you consume as much of anyone else as you did with Maria? Virgo's voice dropped to an almost inaudible whisper. They didn't taste as good. Kashin nodded slowly. I see. Is that why she mattered to you? Because she tasted better than anyone else. Virgo erupted. She mattered because I loved her. Not because of her taste. Her voice cracked with rage. She was my everything. At this point, noises erupted in the background, chairs scraping. An audible beeping sound. Dr. Cashin's voice came over the commotion. Security. Please escort Ms. Virgo back to her room immediately. No. Virgo screamed, her voice raw with desperation. I don't want to go back in there. The door opened, and the sounds of a brief struggle filled the air, Virgo's curses and sobs echoing as she was forcibly removed. When the room finally fell silent, Dr. Kashin let out a long breath. His voice, recorded with a faint weariness, resumed. The subject exhibits intense emotions regarding her first kill. I will not file an incident report at this time. However, Subject Virgo must be sedated until she is prepared to cooperate again. We must continue our research. What kind of creature feeds on human bones and marrow? For now, we'll attempt to keep her sated with animal bones. That's all for today's session. Kashin paused the recording, muttering softly to himself. I've never encountered anything like her. She ate her girlfriend's bones, and sometimes I catch her looking at me like I'm her next meal. Virgo can seem kind and caring most of the time. But after the incident, sometimes I swear I make her salivate.